Hi everybody, this is Scott Sharp with Fretboard Toolbox, and today we're going to look at improvising for the key of G major for beginners. So I'll show you the major scale, the major pentatonic scale, and a little simplified scale, and hopefully by the end you'll be able to start making some cool sounds on some free jam tracks. Let's get started and I'll show you how it works. Today we're going to be using a Fretboard Toolbox Complete Baritone Ukulele book, and we're going to use the key of G major. And so if you look at the major keys here, we have all of the 14 major keys, all the relative minor keys, and all the blues keys. With the complete edition. So today we're going to use the key of G major, and you're going to need to know the chords G major, A minor, we won't play B minor, but C major, D major, and E minor. And for the scales, all the notes in white boxes going across here in the columns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, those are your major scale notes. And then all the major pentatonic notes are underlined. So major pentatonic is G, A, B, skip the C, D, E, skip the F sharp. And then we'll play a little modified scale where we'll just play G, A, B, or the 1, 2, 3 notes. And that's part of the major and major pentatonic. These are the chord progressions we're going to use, and I'll show you how to access the free jam tracks. And then this is the fretboard layout, so you can see all the G major notes are in white boxes and all the G major pentatonic notes are underlined. So to get to the free jam tracks, if you go to the Fretboard Toolbox website, you go to Tracks and Tab and click on 200 free jam tracks. I've got tracks for all these different keys, and each one has a whole bunch of tracks played at 4 different speeds each. But today we're going to use these G major tracks, which is the same as the tracks over here, and we're going to start out with just a straight G major. And so when we're playing that G major, I want you to pay attention to what notes make up the chord, and that's something that Fretboard Toolboxes show you. Major chords are always the notes in the 1, 3, and 5 columns, and the minor chords are always in the 1, flat, 3, and 5 columns. So G major is always made of G, B, and D. A minor is made of A, C, and E. C major is C, E, G, D major is D, F sharp, A, etc. I got lots of videos showing how to build chords, so if you have questions on that, let me know and I'll point you in the right direction. So for the G major chord, we're going to focus on the notes G, B, and D. And we're going to play 3 scales. The first one we'll play will be just the first 3 notes here, so G, A, and B. And we can solo with all these chord progressions with just those 3 notes. Then the second scale, I'll play a G major pentatonic, so G, A, B, D, E, so just the underlined notes. And then the third go around, we'll play the whole major scale. And so when we're playing this G major chord, focus on those notes G, B, and D, and watch how I focus on those notes. So let's start that track here, and we'll play just G, A, B, or G, A, B. So I'll mess with just the G, A, and B's in those 2 spots there. So let's start that out here, and that looks like this. It helps if you can slide. Or hammer on. Now I'll play the major pentatonic. So it goes G, A, B, D, E, G. And there's a D, E in here. And that's a really nice little move there. And then for the whole G major scale, and then we can just mess with the scale. So that's just a few ideas. I'm not trying to have you play every note that I play, but if you like the sound of anything, use that gearbox in the bottom of your YouTube channel there and slow it down to 75 or 50%. But that's just messing around with those first three notes, then the major pentatonic, and then the full major scale. So now we're going to play what's called a 1-5-1 progression. So G major is my 1 chord, made of G, B, and D notes, and then D major is my 5, made of D, F sharp, and A. So if I'm looking at the first 3-note scale, the G, A, and B, G and B are going to sound best over the G chord, and then the A is going to sound best over the D chord. So when I play those first 3 notes, notice how those first 3 notes in the scale, notice how I'm going to focus on those when the different chords come up. And then we'll play the G major pentatonic, and so G and B and D will all sound good over the G major, and then the D and the A will all sound good over the D major. And then when we play the full major scale, G, B, and D will sound the best over G major, and then D, F sharp, and A will sound best over the D major. So let's start that out with just those first 3 notes, and that goes like this. Now it's on the D, and the A sounds good. G major, on the D major, okay, now I'll play the major pentatonic. That D sounds good over the D major. Still on the G. Now the whole major scale. So just focusing on those chord notes is a really big deal, and you can just play the whole major scale all the way through, and you can just mess with the order. But as you're playing along with those chord progressions, notice that there's certain notes that sound extra good when you're playing when certain chords are playing, and that's because you're playing those notes that are part of the chord. Okay, now let's play a 1-4-5 progression. So G major is G, B, D, C major, the 4 chord, is C, E, G, and D major, the 5 chord, is D, F sharp, A. So for that G, A, B, the G and B are going to sound good over G major, and the G is going to sound real good over the C major, and then the A is going to sound real good over the D. And then you can look and see where are those pentatonic notes going to fit best, and where's the whole major scale going to fit best. So let's try this, and we'll start with just that 3-note scale. It's on the C now. It's on the G. Over the C. Now the whole major pentatonic. That E sounds good over the C major. D sounds good over the D. Whole major scale. So what I want you to do is just pause, and you can use this fretboard layout, or I'll show you later how to get this page for free, and pull open those jam tracks on a different device and get those get those jam tracks playing, and start messing around with those scales. And every time I'm playing, I'm not thinking about, okay, I was playing the A note over a D chord, but you'll just start you'll start finding those places, and your brain will start making those connections, even if you don't know exactly what you're doing. So this is just going to give you a lot of safe spaces. Now we're going to play the same chords, but a 1, 5, 4 progression. So G major, D major, C major. So again, we'll start with that 3-note scale. Now it's on the D. On the G. On the D. On the C. Now major pentatonic. Now the whole major scale. Over the D, over the C, whole major scale again. So what I'm trying to have you do is build these safe spaces, and on the next progression I'll play a note that's in the gray boxes, and just show you that when you're playing a note that's outside of the key, it often sounds bad. And so the problem with just people saying like, oh, just try any note, there's tons of good notes on there. That's absolutely true, but there's so many times where you're soloing and you're playing, oops, like that one doesn't work, that G sharp doesn't work, and it may work in certain songs, but in these progressions that are all chords from the key, that G sharp's not going to work in this very well. So but notice that if you play a G sharp, you can just take your finger off and you're at a G, or slide up one and you're at an A, and you got a good chance of that being a good sounding note. So let's play a 1, 6, 4, 5 here, and for the 6th chord it's going to be E, G, and B notes. So notice that the G and B is going to sound good over the E minor too when we play that first 3-note scale. So let's try that. Now the major pentatonic. Whole major scale. Now messing with the order. So that you're not going to, if you're just getting started, you're probably not going to make it just sound awesome at first, because I set this whole thing up as a big laboratory for myself so I could mess around with playing the notes from the scale, seeing where they fit with the chords, and then you just start making some connections. So like I said, I'm not thinking all the notes when I'm playing. I'm just thinking about those shapes and then listening to how does it sound and then moving when I don't like the way that it sounds. But when I'm moving to another note in white boxes usually. So let's play a couple more here. This is a 1-6-2-5. So for the A minor, it's going to be A, C, and E notes. So for that first 3-note scale, like that A will sound good over the A minor. So let's just mess with it and see what happens. Here's the A minor. The G, E minor, A minor, D. Okay, now we'll play the major pentatonic. Now the whole major scale. Now messing with the order. All right, so that was the 1-6-2-5, and then let's play one more here, a G, A minor, C, D, and we'll just get that started. Hopefully you have the idea by now, and if not, just rewind a bunch of times till it makes sense. There's the G, A minor, C, now major pentatonic, now the whole major scale. Now messing with the order. All right, so that's the big idea, is being able to know what chords sound good together, what notes make up the chords, what scales go with those chords, and common chord progressions, ways to arrange them, and then where everything's laid out all over the fretboard. So if where I was playing is too easy for you, pick some patterns up here and try the same thing with all those jam tracks, but use some patterns up here. And if you can find the chord shapes up here, like here's a G major, B, D, G, B, find some places where you can play those chords, like that's G major too, because it's made of the notes G, B, and D. So when I can see those all up and down the fretboard, all these connections start being made and fun stuff starts to happen. So if you'd like to learn more about fretboard toolboxes, if you go to the Fretboard Toolbox website and then you go to pick your instrument, I have instruments set up, or books set up just alike for all these different instruments. Today we were playing the Baritone Uke, and the #1 question I get asked is essential versus complete books. So be sure to click that and watch the video and go into all the differences. Print versus ebook options. I have 2 different ebook options and a print book. You can see all my Baritone ukulele videos here. And then if you click look inside on any of my books, you can download all of the key of G major pages and the instructions for free. So you can mess around with it and see if you find those useful. And I've got all sorts of free tools on here that you can, this helps you practice, like log your practice time and how to master keys and how to build common keys and strumming patterns and what's the circle of fifths. And we've got jam tracks and picking melodies books and fiddle tunes books and a theory by hand book to teach you how to build all those chords and scales on your hand. And I do lessons and all sorts of stuff. So anyways, I hope you found something useful today, and I'll be back on more Fretboard Fridays with more videos on more of my favorite instruments.